Welcome back to the fourth video for this week. In this video, we are going to deviate from our usual course. We have been talking about economics, but as we are talking about firm, we have to understand legal perspective behind the way firms are organized in India. So first I am going to take a more general view and then we will focus on what happens in India. What we did in the last video, we said that firm is represented by a technology, and that is a very black box kind of approach, and it might have left you with thinking no, firm is way more than a profit maximizing entity. So let us see the way firms are organized all over the world and especially in India. So what are the different bases for characterization? First is whether the firm is for profit or for non-profit. So I have been saying that we would assume that firm maximizes its profit. It may not be true for some firms, like let us say some NGOs. Now we have Section 8 companies. Their aim is to do some good in the society rather than to make money. So this can be one basis. Another basis could be that whether the firm needs some sort of registration or it doesn't have any legal requirement of doing any registration. So this is another basis. And third is liability. Let us say that when you are running a business and you take a loan, who is responsible for repaying the loan and who is responsible for the liability, that determines the category of the firm. So all over world we can think, and this I have taken from one of the books, that typically the legal organization can be categorized into 3, 4 or 5 categories. Here I am going to talk about 4 categories, but these 4 categories are for profit. But even here second and third could be merged. So first one is sole proprietorship. So you might have seen somewhere in your city, in your locality, that there is a shopkeeper and there is a board that says Om Kirana Bhandar. I am just saying for an example, there may be some other name, and below that you might have seen written Pro Om Mehta. What does it mean? What does that pro mean? It doesn't mean professor, it means proprietor. And Om Mehta is proprietor of this Om Kirana store or Om grocery store. So Om Mehta is the sole proprietor. So here characteristics is the firm is owned by one person. But as we already said in the beginning, this one person, this one individual may not be just one particular person, it can be a family. So that is also allowed. What are the advantages for such proprietorship, sole proprietorship? It is easy to organize, and the best part is that it is taxed only once. What do we mean that it is taxed only once? So whatever Mr. Om Mehta is earning, it goes to him and he will pay an income tax on it. The business doesn't attract any extra tax from government. We will see that in certain form of businesses, government tax it separately before it is paid to different individual, and then those individuals will have to pay income tax also. So that's one advantage. What is the disadvantage? The problem is that this business exists only for the life of the owner. If proprietor is gone, that business is gone. Of course family can continue, but if that family is gone, that business is gone. But the biggest problem with this is unlimited liability. So whatever loan Mr. Mehta has taken, this he is responsible to pay pay it back. So he has unlimited liability for all the debt that he has taken. And that's very simple. That's what happens in life. But we will see in certain form we have created a legal fiction so that the person and the company are two different entity, and the person who owns that company may not be completely liable. So in that sense we are saying the problem here is unlimited liability. What are the examples? A typical taxi owner, a restaurant owner, a doctor who is running his practice, so a solo practitioner lawyer, all these are example of sole proprietorship, and in India also it is allowed. Next one is partnership, when two or more people come together and form a partnership. Advantage here is like proprietorship, that it is taxed only once. So there is no extra tax on profit. The money goes to the partner and partners have to pay income tax. Here the idea is that employees who are working for this partnership, they have incentive to become partner. This is quite popular in Western world, where lawyers and they start at junior level and they become partner later on. In India also there are many law partnership. In this, although I have written here registration required from the book, but there are different forms in India. For some registration are required, for some registration are not required. Also the problem is here unlimited liability, and problem is bigger than sole proprietorship, because let us say there are three partners and one partner has committed, one partner has taken a big loan, even other partners could be liable, but there are exceptions, and those exceptions we will talk about soon. And here examples are law firm, medical practices, these are partnership. So in partnership, one innovation could be that there is a limited liability partnership. So it's very similar to partnership, but because they register, here registration is must, they register, and there the liabilities are limited in the sense that each partner is liable for the debt that he or she has taken. So that is a big difference. And here also the advantage is that it is taxed only once and liability is limited for each person. Unlike the partnership, it doesn't have unlimited liability. Some big companies are example of limited liability company, and these are example Sony from Japan, eBay, Pepsi Cola, Nike from Europe. These are example of limited liability partners. And the last one is corporation. What happens in which many shareholders come together, they are equity owners, so they part own the company. Typically day to day business is outsourced to professional. These owners, they do not participate in day to day activity. There is a separate professional management that is overseen by board of directors. What is the advantage here? It has perpetual life, it's a legal fiction, it has life of its own, and it has limited liability. Let us say your corporation for which you own 1% share, it goes bust. Of course, you will lose your 1% money that you have there, but you would not be liable for the debt that this corporation has taken. So there is a difference between this corporation and you as part owner of this particular firm. Here, of course, registration is required. There are many additional legal requirement you have to file, like in India you may have to file some kind of report with SEBI, that is Security Exchange Board of India, and there are many other legal requirement. Here another problem is that profit is taxed twice. First as the corporate income tax, because corporation is an entity, a legal entity, it's a legal fiction, it's an entity, so it has to pay tax, and once that tax is deducted and when income is paid to different either equity owner, or then again those equity owner have to pay as income tax. Pfizer, Microsoft, Ford Motor Company are example of corporation. So we see there are advantages of corporation and there are disadvantages. Sometime if one can say, if there are so many disadvantages in the corporation, then why doesn't everyone start corporation? The problem is that the legal requirement can be very high for the corporation, and to fulfill those requirements can be very costly. Again, if one person has started a corporation just for to avail these benefits, the market lender will not give them loan, because they would be worried whether this loan can be repaid or not. So there are so many different consideration involved which comes into picture, whether you should go for sole proprietorship, you should go for partnership, limited liability company, or corporation. Of course, one form of firm that I have omitted here, because all these firms are for profit. So one can also think about non-profit company. They are formed to achieve certain social goals. They may have to register. In most of the time these days in India, you have to register them, and of course they have tax benefit, but they cannot pay profit to, let us say, their board member or their shareholder. So there are restriction on them also. Of course, also there are restriction that in name of paying to the manager of non-profit company, you cannot pay them excessively. Government monitors all these things. So all these considerations are there. I would like to talk about corporation little bit more. Corporations are very important in the sense that they are recent invention. So before World War I, the companies existed in pyramid manner. Uh, Let me show it here, that you have one CEO, below CEO you can have vice president, different vice president. Within those different vice president there are different department heads. Under department heads there are different unit. If this person wants to talk, if this person wanted to talk to this person, he has to go like this, and communication was very difficult. So independently one can say these four American firms, they are the inventor of modern corporation. Sears, which had retail store, also mail order business, and many of you may think what is mail order business. These days you go to Amazon website, select an item and buy it, and they deliver you at home. What Sears used to do, they used to send people catalog. At that time they didn't had such a good, or they didn't had any internet. So Sears used to send catalog, and you, if you wanted to buy some item, you had to tick and check those items and send it back to Sears, and Sears would have sent you the product using postal service. So and Sears also has now these days we have Reliance Smart or hyper, there are different kind of hypermarts. So Sears also has these different retail stores. So the problem Sears had, that Sears needed raw material per items for both these businesses, but marketing was required to be separate for retail store and separate for mail order business, and they needed a better coordination for purchase orders in both side of the business arm. So they were one of the inventors who figured out the way modern corporation works without any pyramid, how this chap can talk to this chap directly. So they, of course, the invention in social sciences, economics, businesses are, they don't sound like invention of, or discovery of COVID drug, but they are equally important for society. Let us come to DuPont, and DuPont was a chemical firm that produces chemical, and they had two kind of businesses, one for consumer and another for military. They used to produce explosive for military. So they were also facing problem. They needed raw material for both the arm, but the dealing of both arms were quite different. So they needed better corporation. General Motor is the third one, and General Motor had many sub brand. In India also Chevy came. There were different other than Chevy or Chevrolet. India also had Opel at one point of time, but in America General Motors had many other subsidiary, Buick, Chevrolet, I don't remember many other names, but all these companies, there were friendly rivalry between among these companies. So they were sharing technology, manufacturing technology, the purchase order also they used to share, but they needed different marketing for these different sub brand. So General Motor was also one of the inventors of corporation, and all these companies invented, came up with their own system, very independent of one another. Fourth one was Standard Oil of New Jersey, which you know today as Exxon. uh, Exxon had this, they were a vertically integrated company which were into oil exploration. They they found oil, extracted it, refined it, and sold it. So all different kind of coordination was required. So these four companies independently, one can say, they started the corporation. At least I should say that my source is R. Preston McPhee, who has a very nice book, Introduction to Economic Analysis, and there he talks about that how these four firms had started this new trend of corporation. Let us move further and talk about India, what happens in India. And although you are not able to see these two, so I will write it. So I have given four firms in different color. First is sole proprietorship and partnership, which are very similar that we have described. And then we have limited liability partnership. We talked about limited liability partnership. Then we have private limited companies. Private limited companies are like a kind of bigger partnership. Then we have public limited companies. The difference here is that here share can be traded in the market, while private limited companies shares cannot be traded in the market. So we have to keep that in mind. In 2013, Government of India came up with the new act and they allowed one person companies to operate. So these are basically for profit company. And then we have section 8 companies and non-governmental organization. These companies are not for profit companies, their goals are different. And then we also have, in light color I have put, joint venture companies, JVs. And then we have also what we have, a special entity called joint Hindu family business. So a Hindu family, there should be a karta, head of the family, who will have unlimited liability, and he would work for the betterment or for the whole company, for whole family as business. But most important for us are these. The point here that I am trying to make, that it's not that some companies, all companies are interested in making profit, but when we are talking about firm in our course, we will assume they are interested in maximizing profit, and all the one listed here, they are interested in maximizing profit. Here they may have goal like spread religious harmony, work for environment. So in a way we will say that here, if goal is profit maximization, here goal could be to reach to maximum number of people. Anyway, it's some sort of maximization or minimization of environmental degradation. So of course we will be learning techniques to do profit maximization, and with some modification similar techniques can be used to talk about purpose of these non-profit making companies.